We have just gotten the brand new episode of Doctor Who, Robot Revolution, and it just didn't land. For me, at every single moment, I was really hoping that I was gonna start liking it, and I just didn't. And it really annoys me because the reason for me not liking it was nothing to do with what you might expect. There wasn't a woke agenda shoved into your face or inconsistent moments or anything like that. It's because we've already seen this episode done before, and it was done so much better. And so throughout the entire thing, all I was doing was comparing it to the previous episode. And that episode is, of course, The Empty Planet from Series 4 of the Sarah Jane Adventures. Now, this is one of my all-time favourite episodes in the whole Whoniverse, and so when I saw robots in Doctor Who, I was so excited, but as soon as the plot started unfolding, it felt worryingly familiar. For reference, here's an idea as to how similar these episodes are. The plot of Robot Revolution is there is a planet that needs their monarch to return because of family issues. In this case, Alan wants to marry Belinda. The planet then sends robots to Earth to capture their monarch, in this case Miss Belinda Chandra, and bring her home to bring order back to the planet. The plot of The Empty Planet is that there is a planet that needs their monarch to return because of family issues. In this case, Gavin's dad has died. The planet then sends robots to Earth to capture their monarch, in this case Prince Gavin, and bring him home to bring order to the planet. Very much the same premise, and it's okay to maybe recycle some ideas, maybe from other showrunners for example, but RTD literally was the executive producer for this Sarah Jane episode, so he very much was involved in the story, so he's basically just copying himself. And in my opinion, just making a worse version of it. And this premise is also very similar to one of the worst films ever, being Jupiter Ascending. Now, the actual stories are sort of flipped. In The Empty Planet, the robots abduct every human in order to find Gavin, whereas in this story, the robots only abduct Belinda. This premise of human being the leader of another planet without them knowing, so robots are coming after them, is a great premise. But what sets apart The Empty Planet from the Robot Revolution is the other story points and mysteries that fill up the entire episode. Because The Empty Planet is not just about Gavin being a prince, it's putting our two lead characters, Ronnie and Clyde, into a very uncomfortable and unusual situation where every human has disappeared. There are loads of mysteries that gradually unfold as Ronnie and Clyde investigate and learn more. At first, they don't even know what the true threat is, and when the robots do come, having only two of them is just as terrifying as having a whole army, because to them, these two robots have the power to remove every human on Earth. Imagine what else they're capable of. Then there's the mysteries as to why Clyde and Ronnie are the only other two humans alongside Gavin who are still left on Earth, and we get to see great character development where we see the two characters question whether they can be good enough for this task, as they aren't
not the time traveller, not the boy genius, not the supercomputer or the mega dog. Us.
And the tension and the stakes are slowly built up over time, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. There is a strange energy reading, then there is no humans, then there is one other human mysteriously around, there's a weird noise, there's shaking like an earthquake, there's two robots, there's a countdown, there's the conflict between our main characters, and even when they succeed, they still don't know whether it's worked. In the Doctor Who Sarah Jane Companion magazine, which I have here in my hands, Gareth Roberts, who wrote this episode, says, "We went through a million reasons for the story until we got the best one." That's why The Empty Planet is so good. They had that same premise, but then built such a compelling and uncomfortable and mysterious and high-stakes story, and then kept on developing it until it was finalised. The problem with the Robot Revolution is it feels sort of like a draft 1 version of a script, because apart from the beginning when Belinda is abducted, What else actually happened throughout this entire episode? Because I've just watched it and I couldn't tell you. Putting all the timey-wimey things aside, which I will say were very fun, but it did seem like Russell T Davies was just trying to do a Stephen Moffat, but just not as successfully. What the characters actually do in this episode is not a lot. They all start in the throne room with the Doctor and the ninth word moment, which I did really like. They then teleport to another room where they then discuss for a bit what has happened, but it's all very vague. They want us to care for this Sasha person, and we see the Doctor cry again, because he has to cry in every single episode for some reason now. But we don't know anything about this woman, so why should we care? We're meant to feel the anger of these characters, but as we haven't spent any time with them, I personally don't feel any sympathy for them. And the difference is, in The Empty Planet, we actually feel things for Gavin because the episode lets us have time to spend with him as a character, so we get to understand his struggles more. And then within 5 minutes, Belinda just decides she'll go along with the robots, and then she confronts Alan, and we get a timey-wimey reason as to why everything has happened, and it's all very exposition-y, and then it just ends with an explosion. There's no build-up. I don't feel any of the stakes change or tensions change. Everything is very much the same throughout the whole episode. We're meant to feel threatened by these robots because there's a massive army of them, but with how childlike they look, I just don't. 2 robots made the stakes the last time, yet this entire army doesn't. I don't feel like there's much danger. They're just killing people who we haven't got to know or get invested in, so I don't really care. And putting the general story to the side, I do think the Disneyification of Doctor Who also made this episode suffer, because all of it just felt like CGI nonsense. What made The Empty Planet great was, ironically, how down-to-earth it was. Doctor Who is at its best when it takes what we understand in our own lives and extrapolates them into a sci-fi moment. Whether that's on Earth, or in the past, or in the future, or on some distant planet. In The Empty Planet, it's the feeling of, what if we were alone on Earth? That's what's terrifying. Nothing in this episode I could relate to. It was trying to maybe go down the AI route, I guess, which I suppose we could sort of relate to, but Alan's robotic face just looked laughable, so I didn't care for it. Sarah Jane Adventures was on such a lower budget than what this episode was made on, but yet it still made this really compelling story. Whereas this episode just seems to shove in CGI or big explosions as a way to try and make the tension or heighten the stakes, and it just doesn't do it very well. And the robots I just couldn't take seriously. The robots in Sarah Jane are described as no features except for a single electronic eye in the centre of its foreheads. These robots with constantly changing faces felt more like the emoji robots from Smile, which just made them not menacing whatsoever. The problem was, throughout this whole episode, I was constantly just comparing it to The Empty Planet because of that similar premise, and I do just think that made my enjoyment for this episode way less, and I just think there wasn't a clear build-up of stakes, and they wanted us to care for things that we hadn't had enough time to invest in and want to care about. And I think that's the main problem with this episode. But do you agree with me? Do you think The Empty Planet from Sarah Jane Adventures is a good episode, or do you think The Robot Revolution is a better episode? What do you think, or should we be comparing them at all? Let me know all your thoughts down below in the comments, and as always, we've been here on Gate of Theories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.